Hello, everyone. This is the Traditionalist. Now, I know you're probably going to be saying, where have you been? Why have you not made any videos for months and months and months? I mean, as of recording this video, I think it's been 6 months almost since my last video. So I want to apologize for that. But there is a good reason why I haven't been uploading much. Basically, my main channel, Mike History, blew up, got a bunch of new views, bunch of new subscribers, still growing very quickly up to this day. And so because of that, I haven't really had time to focus on this channel. And then I was also working on a really big project on my third channel, Demographia. So I do apologize for not having uploaded, especially because it's really unfortunate. 2024 has probably been the most politically exciting year ever since I've started YouTube, and yet I've basically made no videos this entire year. But there's nothing I can do about that today. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what this video is about. It is, of course, about the life and presidency of Joe Biden, and I'm making this specifically because, of course, the American election is right around the corner, and so it's important to look at the legacy of Joe Biden. So let's take a look. So Joe Biden Jr. was born on the 20th of November 1942 in Scranton, Pennsylvania, to Catherine Eugenia Biden and Joe Biden Sr. He was the eldest child in the predominantly Irish Catholic family, though the Biden last name originates from William Biden, an ancestor from England who moved to Maryland around 1820. Joe Biden Sr. was rich and bought a home in the affluent town of Garden City, New York in 1946. But due to suffering business setbacks around age 7, Joe Biden Jr. and his family moved in with his maternal grandparents in Scranton. However, Scranton soon also fell into economic decline, meaning Joe Biden Sr. had a hard time finding a job. In 1953, when Joe Biden Jr. was 10, his family moved to Delaware and his father found work as a used car salesman. Although Joe Biden Jr. was a poor student, he was class president in 11th and 12th grades and graduated in 1961. He entered the University of Delaware in Newark, and while studying there, he obtained 5 student draft deferments for conditions such as asthma. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1965 with a double major in history and political science. A year later, he married Nelia Hunter after overcoming her parents' disinclination for her to wed a Catholic, and they got married in a Catholic church in Skaneateles, New York. They had 3 children, Joe Biden III, known as Beau, Robert, who goes by his middle name Hunter, and Naomi. In his first year of law school, he failed a course because he plagiarized a law review article for a paper he wrote, but this failing grade was later stricken. He was not a good student and graduated 76th in the class of 85 students. He clerked at a Wilmington law firm headed by local Republican William Prickett in 1968 and thought of himself as a Republican. Pretty ironic. Local Republicans tried to recruit him, but he registered as an independent because he disliked Republican candidate Richard Nixon. The following year, he began practicing law at a law firm headed by an active local Democrat, who named him to the Democratic Forum, causing Biden to register in the party. In 1970, he ran for the 4th district seat on the Newcastle County Council on a liberal platform and won, defeating Republican Lawrence Messick. He served from 1971 to 1973, during which he opposed large highway projects. In 1972, he ran against Republican incumbent J. Caleb Boggs to become the junior U.S. Senator from Delaware, being the only Democrat willing to challenge him. He had low funding and was thought to have no chance of winning, with family members having to manage his campaign. Now his campaign focused on the environment, withdrawing from Vietnam, civil rights, mass transit, equitable taxation, and healthcare. Although he was losing by 30% a few months earlier, his energy and ability to connect with voters, neither of which he has today, allowed him to win with 50.5%.
The youngest new face in the U.S. Senate next year will be that of Democrat Joseph Biden of Delaware. So young, in fact, that at the time of his election on November 7th, Biden was not yet old enough to serve. Yesterday, that problem was resolved. ABC Capitol Hill correspondent Bob Clark has the story.
They gave a surprise party yesterday for Joe Biden, who will make history because of his age when he takes his seat in the new Senate. The boyish-looking father of 3 young children was celebrating his 30th birthday. That makes him just old enough to be a United States Senator, 30 being the minimum age prescribed by the Constitution. Biden, a liberal Democrat, pulled one of the big upsets of the election by unseating a 63-year-old Republican, Caleb Boggs. In Washington today, he was having trouble convincing some people he really is a senator and having some doubts about the Senate seniority system, while hoping older members won't hold his age against him.
I expect these fellows are going to eventually judge me on my merit, not on my age, and I have to establish that merit, assuming there is any there.
A few weeks after his victory, his wife and one-year-old daughter were killed in a car accident while Christmas shopping, though his two sons had non-life-threatening injuries. Biden considered resigning to care for them, and he contemplated suicide. But he did not, and in 1975 met a certain Jill Tracy Jacobs on a date. They got married in the United Nations Chapel in New York on the 17th of June 1977 and spent their honeymoon in Hungary. Due to this marriage, Biden was able to get back on track, and they've been attending Mass at St. Joseph's on the Brandywine in Greenville, Delaware since then. In 1981, their daughter Ashley Biden was born. When Biden was sworn in at the Delaware Division of the Wilmington Medical Center at age 30, he was the 7th youngest senator in American history. In a 1974 interview, he described himself as a liberal on civil rights and liberties and health care, but conservative on other issues such as abortion and conscription. Biden was the first senator to endorse Jimmy Carter for president in the 1976 election, which he won, and during this time he was one of the strongest opponents of desegregation busing and did not want to use federal funding to achieve that goal. In 1987, he declared his candidacy for the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination and was considered a strong candidate because of his profile as chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, his appeal to boomers, and his moderate image.
A never-ending joy to my family and me. So it's your help that I seek first, as today I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
He raised more in the first quarter of the year than any other candidate, but his staff's rivalries and accusations of plagiarism soon began derailing his candidacy. He was accused of plagiarizing speeches by British Labour Party Neil Kinnock, as well as speeches by John F. and Robert F. Kennedy. Biden also made many false claims about his life, such as that he had earned 3 degrees in college, that he attended law school on a full scholarship, that he graduated in the top half of his class, and that he had marched in the civil rights movement.
Question: what law school did you attend, and where did you place in that class? And the other question is, could you quickly? I think
I probably have a much higher IQ than you do. I suspect. I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. In the first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I won the International Moot Court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
If I could say one thing, I think just in my own opinion, I'm not questioning your IQ at all.
This eventually led him to withdraw from the race on the 23rd of September out of embarrassment. When the Gulf War broke out in 1991, as a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he voted against its authorization because he believed that the U.S. was bearing most of the burden in the anti-Iraq coalition. He was also involved in the Yugoslav wars, holding a tense 3-hour meeting with Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic, and remembered his roles in those wars as his proudest moment in public life. In 1994, he helped pass the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which was unpopular among progressives and criticized for resulting in mass incarceration.
Very straightforward and simple. He knows there are 2 basic steps here. One step is you must take back the streets. And you take back the streets by more cops, more prisons, more physical protection for the people. He also understands what my friend from Texas understands, and he doesn't talk a lot about, but he signed on to in this bill. He also understands there's a need to keep people who are first-time offenders, who are nonviolent offenders, or who are potential first-time offenders who haven't gotten. I yield myself an additional 3 minutes.
He also voted in 1993 for a provision that banned homosexuals from serving in the military, and 3 years later voted for the Defense of Marriage Act, which banned the government from recognizing homosexual marriage. When Bill Clinton was being impeached, he voted to acquit him in 1998. The following year, during the Kosovo War, Biden supported the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia and co-sponsored a resolution with Senator John McCain, which called on Clinton to use all necessary force to confront Yugoslav aggression.
Not different. I just want to know what you suggest, because back then, when I was in your position, I was suggesting we bomb Belgrade. I was suggesting that we send American pilots in and blow up all the bridges on the Drina. I was suggesting we take out his oil supplies. I was suggesting very specific action.
He later was a big supporter of the war in Afghanistan, and in 2002, as head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he said that Saddam Hussein was a threat to national security and he had to be eliminated. Therefore, he approved of the American invasion of Iraq and emphasized Iraq's fictional possession of weapons of mass destruction.
I believe that a foreign policy, especially one that involves the use of force, cannot be sustained in America without the influence, and helps inform the American people so that we can have a more informed basis. What is the threat from Iraq? Obviously, to fully answer this question will require us to have additional enclosed hearings.
However, by 2006, his stance on Iraq changed a lot, and he opposed the troop surge in 2007 and called for a federalization of Iraq into a Sunni, Shia, and Kurdish region. In 2007, Biden declared his candidacy in the 2008 elections, focusing on the Iraq War and his foreign policy and Senate committee records. However, he had difficulty raising funds, gaining traction, and drawing people to his rallies, and after placing 5th in the Iowa caucuses, he withdrew from the race. He resented Obama's rise to political success, but became convinced that he was the real deal, and Obama told Biden that he was interested in finding him an important place in the administration. On the 22nd of August, Obama announced Biden as his running mate, probably due to his foreign policy and national security experience and his appeal to middle and working class voters. 5 days later, this was made official at the 2008 Democratic National Convention in Denver. Although Biden was told to keep his speeches short and to avoid offhand comments, his remarks frustrated Obama, who asked, "How many times is Biden going to say something stupid?"
Embarrassing.
65-year-old Joseph Biden has been a senator for more than 3 decades, representing the tiny mid-Atlantic state of Delaware. He ran for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1988, but withdrew after admitting he plagiarized a speech by then British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock. He ran again this year, but bowed out after failing to gain enough support in the early primaries. Biden's biggest advantage to the ticket is that he is a strong debater and a foreign policy expert. That should help Obama, a first-term senator whose scant foreign policy credentials have sparked Republican attacks that he is not ready for the presidency. With the crisis in Georgia putting foreign policy issues at the forefront of the campaign, Biden, who is chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, visited the embattled country last week at the behest of the Georgian president. But Biden has disadvantages too. He is known for speaking his mind, but is prone to the occasional gaffe, a tendency that could land him and Obama into trouble. As a longtime Washington insider, his presence on the ticket could undermine Obama's promise of change. Biden voted for the Iraq War, which Obama opposed. He's since become one of the war's most vocal critics and has advocated a loose division of Iraq along ethnic and sectarian lines.
On the 4th of November, he won the election nevertheless and became vice president while also being re-elected to the Senate.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
And I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, Mr. Justice.
As As his term officially started as vice president in 2009, he resigned from the Senate on the 15th of January. He became the first Catholic vice president, but was described by Obama as a basketball player who does a bunch of things that don't show up in the stat sheet. By this time, he was referring to moments such as his May visit to Kosovo, where he said that the United States believed that Kosovo's independence was irreversible, as well as Biden's suggestion to send 21,000 new troops to Afghanistan without permission. Obama named Biden to head the Gun Violence Task Force, which was created to address the causes of school shootings, and consider possible gun control to implement after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting.
Think of all the tragic events we've endured. I don't think anything has touched the heart of the American people so profoundly as seeing those, learning of those young children not only being shot but riddled with bullets. It's every once in a while there's something that awakens the conscience of the country, and that tragic event did it in a way like nothing I've seen in my career. So we're here today to deal with a problem that requires immediate action, urgent action, and the President and I are determined to take action.
As the 2012 election neared, Biden's statement in May that he was now comfortable with homosexual marriage caused a crisis, since Obama had planned on revealing it after the election.
Has President Obama just been handed a new political headache by the man he shares the ticket with? In a Weekend TV interview, Vice President Biden declared he's absolutely comfortable with men marrying men and women marrying women, and they should have the same exact rights as heterosexual couples. Gay rights groups cheered the remark, but the White House insisted Biden was not staking out new ground.
A little bit of an overreaction here. The Vice President supports and made clear he supports the President's policies.
And it says Obama stands by his assertion of 2 Decembers ago that his views on gay marriage are evolving.
The President has been walking a fine line on this issue, loudly cheering increasing acceptance of gay couples, but studiously avoiding an outright endorsement of gay marriage that could trigger a stampede by anti-gay rights voters at the polls.
But the slip-up forced Obama to come out in favor of the idea as well. In August, he made another gaffe when he said that the Republican proposals to relax Wall Street regulation would put y'all back in chains.
Look at what they value and look at their budget and what they're proposing. Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
On the 6th of November, nevertheless, he won re-election with 51% of the popular vote. Biden's Violence Against Women Act was reauthorized again in 2013.
It's never a woman's fault unless she physically abuses.
Which led to the development of the White House Council on Women and Girls, as well as the White House Task Force to protect students from sexual assault, with Biden as a co-chair. As the ISIS insurgency in Iraq intensified in 2014, he favored arming Syria's rebels and said that the United States would follow ISIS to the gates of hell. He was also assigned to focus on Latin America during Obama's administration, visiting the region 16 times, the most of any president or vice president. As the 2016 election approached, he considered running for president.
Joe Biden on the trail for the first time with Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, channeling his blue-collar roots in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Hillary understands the hopes and aspirations of the people in Claymont and Scranton and every Scranton and Claymont in the United States of America.
Hammering away at GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump.
This guy doesn't care about the middle class. And I don't even blame him in a sense because he doesn't understand it. He doesn't have a clue. No, he really doesn't.
Saying Trump is the most unprepared nominee ever for the job of president.
But his son's death caused him to eventually decide not to. He became an honorary professor at the University of Pennsylvania, developing the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me start off by saying that it's great to be on Penn's campus again and not being paid tuition. I was on the way in, and Senator Ted Kaufman from Delaware is with me, and I was saying to Ted, I said, Ted, every time I come on this campus, I feel like I own a part of it. My son went to here, undergraduate school, my daughter graduate school, and the tuition's low.
In 2017, he wrote a memoir and went on a book tour, earning over $15 million from speaking engagement and book sales. On the 25th of April 2019, he launched his campaign for the presidency because he was worried by the Trump administration and felt a sense of duty.
I started this campaign saying we're in the battle for the soul of the nation. I believe that even more deeply today. Who we are, what we stand for, and maybe most importantly, who we are going to be. It's all at stake. Character is on the ballot, the character of the country. And this is our opportunity to leave the dark, angry politics of the past 4 years behind us, to choose hope over fear, unity over division, science over fiction. I believe it's time to unite the country, to come together as a nation. But I can't do it without you.
As the 2020 campaign heated up, he was seen as one of the best performing Democratic candidates, and this boosted his popularity among Democratic voters. In September, Trump pressured Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate alleged wrongdoing by Joe and Hunter Biden.
My call was perfect. The president yesterday of Ukraine said there was no pressure put on him whatsoever, none whatsoever. And he said it loud and clear for the press. What these guys are doing, Democrats are doing to this country, is a disgrace, and it shouldn't be allowed. There should be a way of stopping it, maybe legally through the courts, but they're going to tie up our country.
But no evidence was provided, and this resulted in Trump's impeachment by the House of Representatives. However, Biden was not let off the hook because in March and April, 8 women accused him of inappropriate physical contact, such as touching and kissing them. And Biden had previously called himself a touchy politician, earning himself the moniker of Creepy Joe. But surely, as we can see in these videos, these claims are totally unfounded. In March 2020, Tara Reid, one of the 8 women who in 2019 had accused him of inappropriate physical contact, accused him of having sexually assaulted her in 1993.
Bring the whole family up. Come on. Come on. You're getting too old. You're getting too old and too lovely. What are you, a senior?
A junior.
Come on, it's going to hurt your reputation, man. You're going to have to go home and explain. What would I do with that Democrat? Kids, come on over here, okay? You ready?
Thank you so much.
Now, you getting in this picture?
Do I still hold five?
Right over here. There you go. You can put it away. Come on this side. Okay? Come on, sis. You get right in the middle with me. You go right over here. Over this way. Mom, you get right in the middle. Come on, Dad. Okay, here you go. Good. How old are you?
28.
28. God, I love you.
26.
26. You look like you. I thought they were still in school. Too many beautiful girls in school. You got one job. My father used to say, for real, keep your boys away from your sister. That's the job.
When Bernie Sanders suspended his campaign on the 8th of April 2020, Biden became the Democratic Party's nominee, and he was soon endorsed by Sanders and Obama. On the 11th of August, he announced California Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate. On the 18th, he was officially nominated at the 2020 Democratic National Convention as the Democratic Party nominee for president. He was then elected 46th president.
Hi, sorry to keep you.
That's all right. You ready to go to work?
Oh my God, I'm so ready to go to work.
The totally free and fair election of November 2020.
We did it, Joe. You're gonna be the next president of the United States.
Trump refused to concede and challenged the results, and Biden's transition was delayed by several weeks as the White House ordered federal agencies to not cooperate.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
This led up to the 6th of January United States national Capitol attack,
as Trump supporters clashed with police as they tried, and succeeded, to storm the Congress, where America's elected leaders had gathered to certify the election victory of Joe Biden. There were tense and violent scenes with police who'll have never dealt with anything like this. These pictures appear to show a woman protester being shot inside the Capitol building,
which Biden called an unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've ever seen in modern times.
I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege, to storm the Capitol, to smash windows, to occupy offices, the floor of the United States Senate, rummaging through desks, on the Capitol, on the House of Representatives, threatening the safety of duly elected officials. It's not protest, it's insurrection.
Donald Trump has spoken. He called on his supporters to stand down, but condemnation, there was none.
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people.
After the Capitol was cleared, Congress certified the election results, with Vice President Mike Pence as President of the Senate declaring Biden the winner. Biden was inaugurated as the 46th President of the United States on the 20th of January 2021, becoming the oldest ever president and the second Catholic president. He was also the first man since George H.W. Bush to have been both vice president and president, and the first president from the silent generation. Biden's inauguration was rather muted due to COVID precautions as well as massively increased security measures. Trump did not even attend the inauguration, becoming the first outgoing president since 1869 to not attend his successor's inauguration.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
His first 2 days as president, Biden signed 17 executive orders, and by his third day, he signed orders rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement and the World Health Organization.
And the third one I'm going to sign, and that's what I'm going to do while you're all here, is the commitment I made that we're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord as of today.
And he also ended the state of national emergency at the border with Mexico. He also ordered face mask requirements on federal property and revoked permits for the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. On the 11th of March, the first anniversary of COVID having been declared a global pandemic by the WHO, he signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. A $1.9 trillion economic stimulus and relief package that he had proposed to support the United States' recovery from the economic and health effects of the pandemic. This package included direct payment to most Americans, an extension of increased unemployment benefits, funds for vaccine distribution and school reopenings, and expansions of healthcare insurance subsidies and the child tax credit. His initial proposal included an increase of the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, but after the Senate parliamentarian determined that including the increase in a budget reconciliation bill would violate Senate rules, the Democrats removed the increase from the package. On the 22nd to 23rd of April, Biden held a virtual 2021 Leader Summit on Climate, in which he announced that the United States would reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by half compared to the level of 2005 by 2030.
As we transition to a clean energy future, we must ensure that workers who have thrived in yesterday's and today's industries have as bright a tomorrow in the new industries, as well as in the places where they live, in the communities they have built. When we invest in climate resilience and infrastructure, we create opportunities for everyone.
In July 2021, amid a slowing COVID vaccination rate and the spread of the Delta variant, Biden said that the country has a pandemic for those who haven't gotten the vaccination. and that it was therefore gigantically important for Americans to be vaccinated with some experimental vaccine.
We have a pandemic because of the unvaccinated, and they're sowing enormous confusion. And the more we learn about this virus and the Delta variation, the more we have to be worried and concerned. And there's only one thing we know for sure. If those other 100 million people got vaccinated, we'd be in a very different world.
On the 6th of October 2022, Biden pardoned all Americans convicted of small amounts of cannabis possession under federal law. And on the 22nd of December 2023, he pardoned Americans of cannabis use or cannabis possession on federal lands, regardless of whether they had been charged or prosecuted. On the 13th of December 2022, he signed into law the Respect for Marriage Act, which repealed the Defense of Marriage Act that he himself had voted for and required that the American government, territories, and states recognize the validity of same-sex and interracial marriages, which only really applied to American Samoa, the only American territory to refuse to perform or recognize homosexual marriage.
At the White House, it took the stroke of a pen. But it's something that's been years in the making, a nation that's moved toward acceptance of gay marriage.
We must stop the hate and violence, like we just saw in Colorado Springs, where a place of acceptance and celebration was targeted for violence and terror.
Illegal immigration became a huge issue, and it's not hard to figure out why this happened, since on his very first day in office, Biden halted the construction of Trump's border wall and suspended his Remain in Mexico policy. Between January and February 2021, the encounters leaped from 5,858 to 9,457, making it the largest one-month percentage increase in encounters with unaccompanied children. In March, Biden responded by telling migrants to not come over. And sure, maybe that sounds good, and on the 24th, he also told Kamala Harris to work with Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala to curb the flow of migrants. Although she did tell the migrants in a joint press conference with Guatemalan President Alejandro Gianmattei to not come, you can expect that this achieved absolutely nothing because mere words are not going to stop these people.
To folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border, do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border.
While in 2020, under Trump, border apprehensions had dropped to under 500,000, in 2021 they surged to an unprecedented 1.7 million, beating the 2000 record of roughly the same amount. Meanwhile, in 2022, 2.76 million illegal immigrants crossed the border. In 2023, that number jumped to the all-time high of 2.8 million. Biden did deport 3 million illegal immigrants, but he allowed 7.2 million illegal immigrants to enter the U.S. in just his first 3 years in office, more than the population of 36 of the 50 states.
Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
And if this wasn't bad enough, in just 2023, 169 people on the United States' terrorist watch list were arrested at the border, compared to just 15 in 2021. Biden's handling of the border was so unpopular that only 31% of Americans approved of his actions. Nevertheless, many progressives actually disapproved because they thought he was deporting too many people and should have provided asylum to more of them, even though illegal immigration increased every month between June and September 2023. While Trump expelled 80,000 illegals a year, Biden was only expelling 35,000. He also allowed 813,000 asylum seekers and allowed 530,000 immigrants under parole programs to fly in, leading to several lawsuits by red states. To make this all worse, human traffickers saw a surge in business, so on the 17th of January 2024, a resolution denouncing the Biden administration's handling of the southern border passed the House of Representatives, with all Republicans and 14 Democrats supporting it. This failure also led to the impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on the 13th of February by one vote in the House of Representatives.
The two articles of impeachment accused Mayorkas of refusing to enforce immigration laws and lying to Congress.
No, I would not.
Mayorkas said last week that he would not resign, and President Biden quickly issued a statement last night calling the impeachment a blatant act of unconstitutional partisanship.
In July 2024, the House of Representatives voted 220 to 196 to pass another resolution condemning the Biden administration for their terrible handling of the border, including 6 Democrats. In September, ICE released figures showing that 435,719 criminals were illegally in the United States outside of detention, including 62,231 who were convicted of assault, 15,811 who were accused of sexual assault, and 56,533 who were accused of drug possession. This number doesn't even include the 226,847 illegal immigrants who are facing criminal charges. To deal with the crisis, in May 2023, the Republicans in the House proposed the Secure the Border Act, which would drastically restrict the asylum process, require Amazon employers to verify that employees were documented under penalty of prison, build a border wall, defund nonprofits that provide services to illegal immigrants, and allow the Department of Homeland Security to close the border entirely if need be. No Democrats, though, supported this bill, and as such, it did not pass. In June, the Senate Republicans proposed a bill that would resume border wall construction, increase pay for Border Patrol agents, reform asylum laws, crack down on the parole of illegal immigrants, and deny asylum to those who came through safe countries. However, Democrat Dick Durbin criticized the bill for deporting refugees from Afghanistan and Ukraine, and the Democrats refused to pass it. In June 2024, Biden issued an executive action offering amnesty to illegal immigrants married to American citizens, which includes a pathway to American residency and citizenship for around 500,000 people who, of course, will vote for him and his party. Now, on the economy, Biden's first year was characterized by strong growth in real GDP, employment, and wages, but this was mainly due to the recovery from COVID, which really skewed the statistics. Instead, when we look at one of the most important economic statistics, inflation, it reached a nearly 40-year high of 7.1%. Biden signed an executive order to increase the minimum wage for federal contractors to $15 per hour, an increase of nearly 37%. As can be seen, once the worst of the COVID-19 effects wore off, the real GDP growth cooled to just 2.1% in 2022. Meanwhile, inflation peaked at 9.1% before easing to 3.2% by October 2023. Meanwhile, GDP growth hit 4.9% in the third quarter of 2023.
Any blame for inflation, Mr. President?
Am I taking blame for inflation? No.
Correct. Why not?
Because it was already there when I got here, man. Remember what the economy was like when I got here? Jobs were hemorrhaging. Inflation was rising. We weren't manufacturing a damn thing here. We were in real economic difficulty. That's why I don't.
At the beginning of the 118th Congress in 2023, Biden engaged in a standoff with Republicans after the U.S. hit its debt limit, which raised the risk of the U.S. defaulting on its debt. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy struck a deal to raise the limit, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which delayed the debt limit until 2025, but this did not achieve anything substantial.
After weeks of negotiations, we have come to an agreement in principle. We still have a lot of work to do, but I believe this is an agreement in principle that's worthy of the American people.
By the end of 2021, 40 of Biden's nominees to the federal judiciary had been confirmed, more than any other president in his first year in office since Ronald Reagan. He has prioritized diversity instead of merit in his judicial appointments, more than any other president, with most of his appointments being women and minorities. This shows that he cares way less about competence and merit and more about political correctness. In January 2022, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, a liberal, announced his intention to retire from the Supreme Court. So Biden used the opportunity to make good on his promise to nominate the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, nominating Ketanji Brown Jackson on the 25th of February 2022, who was sworn in on the 30th of June.
For too long, our government, our courts, haven't looked like America. And I believe it's time that we have a court that reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation, with a nominee of extraordinary qualifications.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am truly humbled by the extraordinary honor of this nomination.
In fact, of the over 200 federal judges Biden has confirmed, 2/3 of them have been women, and probably most of them that was their only qualification. Now, as part of Biden's Build Back Better plan, the Build Back Better Act was proposed, a $3.5 trillion social spending bill that expands the social safety net and includes major provisions on climate change. However, it received no Republican support, and it did not win the support of Senator Joe Manchin, even when the price was reduced to $2.2 trillion, which is really such a decrease, right? Now, because of this failure, the Inflation Reduction Act was passed instead, which actually has almost nothing to do with inflation, but aims instead to reduce the federal government budget deficit, lower prescription drug prices, and invest in domestic energy production while promoting clean energy. It will authorize $891 billion in total spending, including $738 billion on energy and climate change, and 3 years of Affordable Care Act subsidies. This represents the largest investment towards addressing climate change in American history, because the law is projected to reduce 2030 American greenhouse gas emissions to 40% below 2005 levels. In fact, the act is not even believed to have reduced inflation at all in 2022 or 2023, and was only passed because Kamala Harris broke the tie. Now, before and during the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, Biden promoted an agreement that the US and EU cut methane emissions by a third by 2030, and tried to add dozens of other countries to the effort. He also pledged to double climate funding to developing countries by 2024.
The Inflation Reduction Act is also the most significant investment ever in climate change. Ever. Lowering utility bills, creating American jobs.
On the 2nd of September 2022, a nationally broadcast speech during the 2022 elections, Biden called for a battle for the soul of the nation, but off camera he called Trump supporters semi-fascists. Despite this, Republicans secured a slim majority of 222 seats in the House of Representatives, while the Democrats kept control of the Senate. In February 2021, Biden announced that the United States was ending its support for the Saudi-led bombing campaign in Yemen, and revoked the designation of the Houthis as terrorists, which turned out to be a really good decision. Now, in September, he announced a security pact between Australia, the UK, and the US known as AUKUS, a deal which included nuclear-powered submarines built for Australia's use. In February 2022, Biden ordered a counter-terrorism raid in northern Syria that resulted in the death of Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qurashi, the second leader of ISIS.
This horrible terrorist leader is no more. Our forces carried out the operation with their signature preparation and precision, and I directed the Department of Defense to take every precaution possible to minimize civilian casualties.
In July, he approved a drone strike that killed Ayman al-Zawahiri, the second leader of al-Qaeda and a principal planner of the 9/11 attacks. Despite these successes, Biden's foreign policy legacy will be overshadowed by his horrible and disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Although in February 2020, the United States and Taliban had made a deal that led to the withdrawal of American forces, it took a while for this to begin, though by July 2021, most had left. Biden famously said, and I kid you not, the likelihood that there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the entire country is highly unlikely. But that is exactly what happened on the 15th of August 2021 when they took over Kabul and Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled the country. Biden ordered 6,000 American troops to assist with evacuating American personnel and allies, but these evacuations were chaotic and botched, leading to criticism from both parties. The next day, he admitted that the situation unfolded more quickly than we had anticipated, but defended the withdrawal by saying that American troops should not be dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight themselves, which is true.
I don't think that the issue that, do you think that people have an issue with pulling out of Afghanistan or just the way that things have happened?
The disaster only worsened on the 26th of August when a suicide bombing at the Kabul airport killed 13 Americans and 169 Afghans.
And 4 days ago, 11 Marines, 1 Navy medic, and 1 soldier were killed by a suicide bomber at the airport gate as well as scores of Afghans.
The next day, an American drone strike killed 2 ISIS targets who had planned and facilitated the bombings. 2 days later, another American drone strike ended up killing 10 civilians, of which 7 were children. The withdrawal from Afghanistan was complete the next day, the 30th of August, which Biden called an extraordinary success. Yeah. Extraordinary success. Although that success included 200 Americans stuck in Afghanistan, even though Biden had promised to keep troops in Afghanistan until all Americans left. Even after all this, the United States continued to send aid to Afghanistan, remaining the country's largest donor of aid to this day, with a sum of $20.7 billion, which has mostly just ended up helping support the Taliban government. Now, with America's weakness fully displayed on the world stage, it did not take long for other opponents of the United States to take advantage. As we well know, on the 24th of February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, even after Biden had received warnings for several weeks that the attack was imminent. When the invasion began, Biden responded by imposing severe sanctions on Russia and offering $8 billion in weapons shipments to Ukraine. On the 29th of April, he asked Congress for $33 billion for Ukraine, which was later increased to $40 billion. On the 20th of February 2023, 4 days before the one-year anniversary of the invasion, Biden visited Kiev and met with President Volodymyr Zelensky, where he promised more military aid to Ukraine. In October, he requested an additional $61.4 billion in aid.
You know, 1 year later, Kyiv stands, and Ukraine stands. Democracy stands. The Americans stand with you, and the world stands with you.
But had consistently refused Ukrainian requests to allow them to use weapons against Russian military targets inside Russia, with the exception of targets near Kharkiv. With the aftermath of the invasion of Ukraine, Biden expressed support for Sweden and Finland's accession to NATO, and on the 9th of August he signed the Instruments of Ratification showing American support for the idea. Finland joined on the 4th of April 2023, but opposition by Hungary and Turkey prevented Sweden from joining, which required Biden to negotiate Sweden's entry, which successfully happened on the 7th of March 2024.
The extraordinary diplomacy that it's exerted, making sure that every question was answered, every challenge was met, every obstacle was overcome, that's what brought us to today.
Sweden's accession comes after its membership bid was held up by objections from Turkey and Hungary that were recently dropped. The Swedish Prime Minister is set to be a guest of honor at the State of the Union tonight, where President Biden is expected to highlight the danger of Russian aggression.
He has also expressed support for Ukraine's entry into the alliance, which is the very reason that Putin invaded, although following the end of the war. And he supported an accelerated timetable and the removal of steps such as the membership action plan typically required for NATO. Now, moving on to America's main enemy, China, its security pact with the Solomon Islands in 2022 sparked fear that it would build military bases across the southern Pacific. Biden responded by strengthening ties with Australia and New Zealand, and in September he had an interview with 60 Minutes where he said that the U.S. would defend Taiwan in the event of an unprecedented attack by the Chinese. Now, this marked the end of the U.S. policy of strategic ambiguity, where they neither confirmed nor denied that they would defend Taiwan.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes,
You are.
that's the commitment we made.
However, as these statements have angered China, Biden's administration has repeatedly walked back his comments and asserted that strategic ambiguity remains the official policy. In late 2022, Biden issued several executive orders and federal rules designed to slow Chinese technological growth and maintain American leadership in computing, biotech, and clean energy. On the 4th of February 2023, he ordered the U.S. Air Force to shoot down a Chinese surveillance balloon after allowing it to cross the country for an entire week, and it landed in South Carolina.
Boom! That's my Air Force right there, buddy.
The balloon carried antennas and other equipment capable of geolocating communication signals, but China claimed it was just a civilian airship that had blown off course. Sure. In May 2024, Biden's administration doubled tariffs on solar cells imported from China and tripled tariffs on electric vehicle batteries, as well as raising tariffs on imports of Chinese steel, aluminum, and medical materials. Now, other than Russia and China, Biden's foreign policy faced a third major crisis after the 7th of October Hamas attack on Israel, which marked the beginning of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Biden responded by condemning Hamas and starring his unequivocal support for Israel, deploying aircraft carriers in the region to deter other countries from joining the war, and calling for $14 billion of aid to Israel. However, as Israel's ruthless siege of Gaza ensued, leading to a famine that has caused 2.2 million people to face starvation, the highest number ever recorded on the IPC scale, and the most intense man-made famine since World War II, Biden pressured Israel to address the crisis. Nevertheless, he rejected calls for a ceasefire because he has called himself a Zionist. He's faced criticism for his unwavering support of Israel, with officials urging him to take a harder stance against them. Some change began to happen following the Flower Massacre on the 29th of February, when at least 118 Palestinians were killed and 760 injured after Israeli forces opened fire while Palestinians were seeking food from aid trucks. It was the deadliest Israeli incident since the start of the war, and happened only one day after the World Food Programme reported that more than 500,000 Palestinians were at risk of famine in Gaza. On the 3rd of March, the United States military began airdropping food in Gaza, but these were criticized for being performative and did little to actually help. A March 2024 poll has shown that a strong majority of Americans disapproved of the Israeli conduct of the war, with the younger generations being much more critical, myself included. Now, this has resulted in war protests across university campuses that began in April and have been going on for half a year ever since. On the 31st of May, Biden announced his support for an Israeli ceasefire proposal, since Hamas was no longer capable of a wide-scale attack. This would have resulted in a permanent ceasefire, the release of all hostages, and the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. This was agreed to by Hamas but rejected by Israel, which demanded the complete destruction of the organization. And several months later, that still has not happened. Now, Biden is also well known for his corruption, and on the 11th of January 2023, the House of Representatives launched an investigative committee into the foreign business activities of Hunter Biden. The committee's chair also launched an investigation into corruption related to his laptop controversy.
Hunter Biden came to Capitol Hill to speak out, just not to the committee waiting to interview him.
For 6 years, I have been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you know
this
is
I really don't know.
Okay.
The answer is.
You don't know yes or no if the laptop
I don't have
was
any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. There could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
On the 12th of September, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy launched a formal impeachment inquiry against Biden, saying that the recent House investigations reveal corruption in his family. Thus, on the 13th of December, the House of Representatives voted 221 to 212 to formalize an impeachment inquiry into Biden. Nevertheless, though, this failed, which allowed Biden to continue his presidential run. This has been announced on the 25th of April 2023, even though his approval rating was at just 37%, mainly due to his terrible handling of the economy. On the 27th of June 2024, he held a train wreck of a debate against Republican nominee Donald Trump, where he frequently lost his train of thought and gave meandering answers.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with,
This was finally what got the Democrats to realize how incompetent and demented he was, because apparently it wasn't obvious earlier, and on the 21st of July, he withdrew from the race, endorsing Kamala Harris as his successor. She was confirmed on the 6th of August, despite not being voted for democratically, even though that is the name of her party. Overall, then, when looking at his policies, Biden has been described as a moderate Democrat, even though he has the most progressive platform of any major candidate in American history. However, this is because he's known for his flip-flopping on issues and has few real convictions. While as a senator he had voted for the Defense of Marriage Act, he later supported same-sex marriage since 2012. He'd advocated for harsher punishments for drug use as a senator, but ran on decriminalizing cannabis in 2020. He also stated that he was against regime change and opposed direct American intervention in 2011 in Libya and in the Gulf War in 1991. Nevertheless, he supported the regime change war in Iraq that started in 2003. He also states that he is opposed to abortion, but has championed abortion rights throughout his presidency, saying that he supported Roe v. Wade in 2019, and he has taken measures to protect abortion in the country.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help.
He tried to codify abortion protections into law in 2022, but thank God this failed to pass the House. He is also known for his numerous creepy incidents, such as these. So, in conclusion, Joe Biden has been a terrible president and is not a great guy overall. He is known for his dishonesty, often caught plagiarizing, inventing stories, and covering up his family's corruption. More worryingly, though, his many gaffes have had major implications, such as his comments on defending Taiwan, endorsing Kosovo's independence, or telling people that endorsing Republicans would lead to African Americans getting re-enslaved. He has also been a fan of American intervention in many useless foreign wars such as Yugoslavia, Iraq, and others. Finally, he is a pervert accused by 8 women of sexually inappropriate behavior. As president, he has made some good foreign policy decisions, such as creating AUKUS, expanding NATO, and effectively confronting the communist Chinese threat. But due to his disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, that will remain his primary foreign policy legacy due to the ramifications that it has had on the world. This show of weakness enabled the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has led to at least 200,000 people being killed, mostly young men. However, his reaction to Israel's actions has been much worse since he has been an enabler in the largest famine since World War II and unconditionally supports a country that the US has no business being involved with. He supported many woke policies by being the president to appoint the most female judges and choosing a vice president purely based on her race and gender instead of her merit. He has also supported the ineffective and useless mask mandate, promoted the experimental COVID vaccines, and firmly stood behind the fake right to kill your own children. Economically, he pushed for radical climate change policies that sound nice, but have resulted in him shutting down the pipelines and aiming to achieve reductions of climate emissions by half in a super short time span. His bad economic decisions also led to a 40-year high in inflation, a cost of living crisis, and a near total collapse of the economy due to the burgeoning debt. His immigration policy has been horrendous, with him allowing 813,000 asylum seekers, 530,000 immigrants under parole programs, and 435 known criminals into the country. But when one considers that illegal immigrants are criminals due to them having broken the law, he actually allowed over 7 million criminals to enter the country in just 3 years, and that number is still rising. He has set America and the world down a worse course with more wars, a less meritocratic system, economic hardship, and rising political division, only worsened by his categorization of Trump supporters as semi-fascists and recently as fascists. However, do not listen to what this old fool has to say and go out and vote for Trump if you live in America. Every vote counts. All right, and that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you're American, again, please go vote. The election is so tight and every vote actually matters. If you are not American, such as myself, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video and learned something new about Biden. And tell me your thoughts. Do you think he was the worst president in history? Do you think he's one of the worst? What are your thoughts? Anything I forgot to mention? Anything you disagree with? Don't forget to put all that in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time.